We had a massive game yesterday with the Georgia Bulldogs taking on the Clemson Tigers, and today we're going to talk about this game. Very, very excited for this one. Coming into this game, I thought the Georgia Bulldogs were a lot better than the Clemson Tigers, but some people were saying that, hey, the Tigers have guys like, DeMonte Capehart, who some scouts believe is a top 15 pick in the next draft. They got Blake Miller at right tackle, who some people think could be a top 2-round guy. Tristan Leah, the starting left tackle. These are NFL caliber players that Clemson has, and then they have some playmakers, both on offense and on the defensive side. And some people thought that the Georgia Bulldogs could lose, and even in the first half. People are saying Carson Beck's overrated, the offensive line's overrated, the Bulldogs as a team are overrated. It was 6-0 going into halftime. But the one thing you definitely saw over the course of that game was that the Bulldogs moved at a different speed than did the Clemson Tigers. Like, you could just tell. Guys like Mykel Williams, guys like Malachi Starks, these guys just moved different, right? They're just faster than everybody that the Clemson Tigers had. And I felt like over the course of the game, first half it was close. Second half adjustments were made, right? Kirby Smart obviously let his quarterback do some more things, I felt like, in the second half versus the first half. And it was basically a blowout, right, at that point. I think the game was pretty much put away at the start of the fourth quarter. The final score was 34-3. I did not feel like the game was as close as the score actually indicated. I felt like Georgia was kind of being hesitant a little bit on the offensive side. I felt like Carson Beck, he has aspirations to be the top quarterback taken in the 2025 NFL draft. Now, some people are going to say, hey, he didn't look that good. I would actually disagree. When you analyze quarterback play, there's things that you want to look at. First and foremost, we got to understand Clemson is not a bad football team. They're a good team, right? It's not NDSU, right? Clemson is a lot better than, an FCS school. But more than that, to me, when you come into week one and you're playing another team that's a top 25 ranked team, you don't want to be, you don't want to come out and throw multiple interceptions. You don't want to have turnovers. You don't want to play a game in which you lose the turnover battle. You got to be careful coming into these type of games, especially since it's week one. It's the one game where you don't have the tape of this opposing team. You don't really know what they're going to do. And, they were hesitating a little bit, right? The Bulldogs were in the first half, but in the second half, they made the adjustments, and Beck, to me, looked really good. So overall, Carson Beck finished 23-33, 278 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had 3 carries for 19 yards, and 2 of those 3 went for first downs. So Carson Beck, to me, in the second half looked a lot better. Now, it wasn't just, statistically. Like, you could tell this guy felt more comfortable. He got pressured a little bit from the left tackle or the right tackle, and he'd step up into the pocket. There's pressure in the middle, he'd roll out to the right. Guys aren't open early on in the route tree or the route combination. He'll get out of there, he'll keep his eyes downfield, and he'd hit whoever it is that would end up getting open. I felt like Carson Beck did a really, really good job for the Georgia Bulldogs as the game went on, right? He got more comfortable. You can tell it really started coming together for him. Overall, I felt like Carson Beck had a really, really good game. Some people might not agree with that. I know people love to be, reactive within the moment. I felt like Carson Beck was pretty solid yesterday. But the guy that really surprised me was Nate Frazier. Frazier had 11 carries, 83 yards, and a touchdown. Only 11 total touches, which is kind of crazy. But the guy had a great game yesterday. And I think, I do truly believe this. I think Clemson has a really solid front seven. They got guys that are in the NFL. To me, I felt like Nate Frazier had a really good game. And if he got more touches, he could have had 150 yards if he had 20 carries. More than him, there's 2 offensive linemen that really stood out to me. Now, if you guys don't know this, I'm a Hula Bowl scout, specifically offensive and defensive line, right? So I scout O-line and D-line for the Hula Bowl. And there's one guy specifically that's on my radar from the Georgia Bulldogs. There's a couple guys that are legit, but one guy specifically, Tate Ratledge, obviously, in my opinion, he's one of the best interior offensive linemen coming out this year. 55 snaps in pass pro. The guy was phenomenal. To me, I don't think there's a better guard in college when it comes to pass blocking. The way this guy drops the anchor, the way this guy uses his hands, he uses independent hands, which is something you want as an offensive lineman. The way this guy was able to take the blocking angles and get in front of guys and reach and just seal guys off, I personally felt was phenomenal. Tate Ratledge, to me, showed me everything I needed to see to say this guy's, if he's not the top interior offensive lineman, he's like one of the 2 or 3 guys. Phenomenal football player. And I think the tape also kind of speaks for itself. Speaking of tape, if there's some prospect or some guy you guys want to see specifically, you guys let me know, and we will definitely break down the tape of whoever it is that you guys want to see. Let me know down in the comments below. The other guy that stood out to me was Ernest Green, the third sophomore starting left tackle. You know, he has to come in and he has to be able to protect Carson Beck, right? That's a hard thing to do, and he's doing it, man. He's doing it. He's having success. 55 snaps as a left tackle yesterday. 0 quarterback hits, 0 sacks. He did give up like 1 or 2 pressures, but really it wasn't a huge deal. You know, the guy tried to speed rush and he kind of just let him go around the edge there. Ernest Green looked phenomenal. So I'm excited to kind of watch this kid as he kind of develops, as he kind of gets better and better over the course of his career. Phenomenal, right? Generally speaking, I feel like the offense had a really, really good day, right? I'll be the first to tell you guys. Georgia's offense coming into this season is kind of interesting because, you know, you don't have a lot of guys that you had last year, essentially, right, on this offense. Trevor Etienne was obviously, you know, did not play. He was obviously suspended for the game yesterday. So then we got to see Nate Frazier, and it's just different, right? Everything's different, right? You didn't expect a guy who is a legit freshman, right? A guy that just came in. You didn't expect this guy to come in and have the success that he ultimately did, right? I think yesterday on the broadcast, they kept saying Nate Frazier's like DeAndre Swift, right? That's kind of the comp that he's getting. I could agree with that, right? I think that could definitely be a fair comp. He came in, had a really, really good day. But, you know, you got guys like Trevor Etienne who transferred over, so you don't really know what you have with him, right? At least in a live environment. Then you got guys that are kind of coming in on the offensive line. You got a new tight end. You got some new receivers, right? And the receivers aren't necessarily new, right? But, like, it's just different, right? The offense this year is different. And there was a lot that we kind of wanted to see, especially with the entire offseason. You know, this is the first Georgia Bulldogs video I'm doing on this channel. This channel is kind of new as well, right? I haven't really posted on it in the past. We will be doing weekly Georgia Bulldogs content, so subscribe if you guys are fans. Also, let me know what film videos you guys want to see, and we'll definitely be getting into that as well. But, you know, I follow the Bulldogs, at least from afar, and one of the narratives that has existed with the Bulldogs is that the Bulldogs, you know, they're always getting arrested. You know, they're the character concerns, and they go out and get questionable guys. You know, to me, those are things that are not factually true. You know, there's a difference between having a legit character concern and just being immature, right? Those are two different things. And this is the one thing that I feel like I personally learned as I got into the scouting world a couple years ago. This was something that I really realized. You know, Jalen Carter, people in the NFL draft process were saying, hey, you can't draft Jalen Carter. You know, he has a bad character. He's not the type of guy you want on your team. But what people don't realize is it a bad character or is it immaturity issues? There's two different things, because you can grow up as you become a real adult, you know, like 23, 24, 25 years old. As you get out of college, as you hit the real world, right? You grow up. You're not going to be as immature. So, you know, even with some of the guys that Georgia might have, you know, guys get arrested here, guys get in trouble here, whatever it is, right? So to me, I don't think that narrative is true, but it is one of the narratives I know that exists. So I'm glad the Bulldogs were able to come in and crush a top 25 team. So let's talk about the defensive guys, because there are some updates that I kind of want to get into. We'll start right away with arguably, you know, draft community wise, Mykel Williams is probably the guy that everybody wants to see, you know, potentially take that step and become a top 15 pick. Mykel Williams has so much upside, but yesterday he was unfortunately knocked out of that game. I believe it was in the second quarter, may have been in the third quarter, but essentially he was knocked out, and Kirby Smart was asked about him, and he did give an update on it. So Coach Kirby Smart said Williams is dealing with the left ankle injury. He exited the game in the third quarter after he was taken out by an illegal chop block. Smart said the x-rays on Williams look clean, but he was still cautious in that regard. So there you guys have it, right? So good news, the x-rays were clean, right? And I think that's what you want to make sure. You don't want Williams to miss any part of the season. I think he's one of those guys that's a difference maker. Even yesterday, he only played 20 snaps, but I noted multiple times that, you know, keep in mind, Clemson has 2 tackles that are going to be in the NFL. They're good football players. Mykel Williams got into the backfield multiple times, right? He might not have brought the quarterback down for a sack, but he was generating pressure. He was making the quarterback move off his spot. He was making the offense uncomfortable. Clemson, even at one point in the second quarter, maybe it was some sort of adjustment after like the second drive. They started putting a tight end on that side. They also chipped on pretty much every single play. They would influence the way Williams was pass rushing. So Williams was impacting the game plan more than I think people realize. So he's a guy to kind of keep an eye on as we go forward. His health, I think, is going to be key. Obviously not this week, but the next week that's coming up. But after that, we'll definitely need to make sure he's healthy. Another guy that I felt like looked good, Damon Wilson Jr. had 2 quarterback hits. He looked really, really good as well. He's one of those guys that I think has upside as well, but he's one of those guys that hasn't really put it together. But I think the more playing time this kid has, I think the better he'll be. Malachi Starks, the best safety in college football, or at least one of the top 2 guys. I think there's one other guy that people are kind of hyping up as well. Malachi Starks, man, phenomenal game. And you know what's crazy is sometimes stats don't tell the whole picture. Sometimes you got to put the tape on, and sometimes you got to watch the tape. But Malachi Starks was incredible yesterday, man. He had 1 interception. He had 3 total tackles, including one that was a run stop. I think it was like on 3rd down. He made a key tackle to force the punt. He had a quarterback pressure on a blitz. He had the interception, which was a phenomenal interception as well. And then he had a bunch of plays where he was just doing his job. He was in coverage. Quarterback looks that way, doesn't throw it that way because Malachi Starks is in the area or he's kind of taking something away. And just generally speaking, the guy had a great game. He was the highest ranked safety that played at least 40 snaps yesterday. So he had a phenomenal game, right? So, which is expected, right? I think Starks is expected to have a great game pretty much every single week. But it's going to be interesting to kind of watch this guy as he continues this season. He had an interception yesterday because he was tested. I don't think most people are going to test this guy. I don't think most people are going to try throwing the ball his way. But he did a great job yesterday with the interception. The game was probably already over at that point, but regardless, still a great job. And then you got 2 young linebackers that I kind of wanted to see step up, and both guys stepped up. You got CJ Allen, you got Raylan Wilson. Both of them are sophomores. Both guys are guys that are going to play a lot this year for the Georgia Bulldogs. Together, they had like 8, 9 tackles, multiple run stops, in coverage. They're pretty good. They're running out there. They're hitting people. They're filling their run fits, right? To me, one of the things that I think the Bulldogs will have to do this year is not necessarily focus on stopping the run, right? Because I don't think the Bulldogs are the type of team that has to do that. But I would make the argument that the Bulldogs on the front 7 are, it's not that they're the worst they've been in the last 3 or 4 years. That's not the right thing to say. But this is the year that I would make the argument, right, that the secondary maybe is a lot better, right? You got some better players in the secondary. So maybe teams are going to try to run the football a little bit more. You're also relying on younger guys, right? So these aren't like seniors that are going to be there, or guys that have like 4 or 5 years of experience. And I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, but I think this is the year that the Bulldogs are going to have to make sure they are good against the run, right? You want to make sure you're shutting the run down. And they did a great job against Clemson, right, to be fair. But this is the year that you want to make sure that no teams are gashing you for big runs. And I felt like they did a really good job yesterday. I felt like 2 linebackers did a really good job. And there are other guys as well, right? But these are guys that just stood out to me on tape, right? Just watching the tape earlier this morning, these are the guys that kind of stood out to me. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you guys think, man. What are you guys' thoughts on the game yesterday? Again, we will be doing the Bulldogs content this season. Let me know what you guys think, man. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.